There were over 2,000 No Kings protests across the country. You covered them. The rallies came after Trump sent the National Guard and active duty Marines to Los Angeles in response to anti-ICE protests that featured sporadic violence. It did not exist, but it was not, it was not what they're putting out in the right-wing arenas. Surveys show most Americans mostly disapprove of Trump's response in LA, but Trump seems to want to bait protesters into giving them an excuse for a crackdown. What's the political calculus here? Would he ultimately benefit from a show of force, given most of the polls are underwater, including one today about his big, beautiful bill? Most people think it's small and ugly. Does he ultimately benefit, or is this an old trick that's not necessarily working?
I think that he is choosing unpopular things with more popular things right there for the taking. I don't think the shows of force are necessary. At the end of the day, the National Guards, the men and women of the National Guard are patrolling their own streets. That's a terrible story for Trump. Mm-hmm. Terrible.
And so why pursue it? I mean, as long as the stock market is up and the inflation stays down, he can more or less do what he wants, presumably around whatever it is, protests, immigration, universities, crypto scams. Although economists say we're likely to see higher inflation this summer. So did Elon Musk, by the way, his former friend. But so far it's not there yet, these tariffs, for example.
Well, why? I mean, I think it answers a more important question about who's around him. Mm-hmm. And I think for people who, I was one of them, were constantly critical of the guardrails, people like H.R. McMaster, mm-hmm. Dina Powell, mm-hmm. or John Kelly, how could they stay? How could they work for someone like that? They were there to keep Trump from escalating with Kim Jong-un, from launching a global trade war, from invoking the Insurrection Act. I mean, I think folks close to Milley and Esper have talked about what mm-hmm. they did the last time Trump wanted troops on the street. They told him it was a bad idea. And I think you see that there are it's obvious, but you see the impact or the consequences of not having anyone like Mark Esper or Mark Milley or John Kelly or Don McGahn around Trump.
One of the things I kept saying is, people are for deportation for the most part, except not everybody is, but enough people are, but not like this. Or the universities, but not like this, et cetera, et cetera. Or we want better crypto rules, but not like corruption, like that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Does that have an effect from your perspective?
Does it matter politically? We'll see. I mean, I don't think you can get ahead of the story. I've been surprised by the lack of attention that he seems to pay to the things that he was obsessed with last time. He was obsessed with cable coverage of himself. He was obsessed with New York Times and Washington Post coverage mm-hmm. of himself. He was obsessed with the stock market mm-hmm. undulations. Now, other than the alarm bells that went off when he threatened to fire Jerome Powell, he doesn't seem to really ride the market highs and lows. He doesn't seem nearly as, and I'm not on X anymore, so I don't see all of the mm-hmm. sort of ebbs and flows anymore of MAGA world. But Trump doesn't seem as agitated by press coverage and market twists and turns as he used to. But he does seem to be aware of the political pressure bearing against him. And I think the fight with Musk is an example of that. I mean, he was aware of how bad that looked for both of them. They looked like assholes.